Hello everyone! Today we're going to explore one of the most critical process in semiconductor manufacturing, which is etching. This is a subtractive technique used to precisely remove material layers on a wafer, allowing the creation of intricate features at the micro and nanoscale. Whether you're working with transistors, sensors, or microelectromechanical systems, etching plays a pivotal role in shaping the final structure. You'll have a solid understanding of the major types of etching, their applications, and the technologies pushing etching into the atomic scale. Let's begin by taking a look at what we'll cover today. This presentation is structured to walk you from the basics to more advanced topics. We'll start with an introduction to etching and a brief historical overview. Then we'll explore the theory behind etching, different categories like wet and dry, and their key characteristics. A comparison between isotropic and anisotropic etching will help clarify their applications. We'll also cover advanced techniques and how etching is used in semiconductor devices and MEMS. Finally, we'll touch on safety, environmental concerns, and conclude with key insights. Before we dive deeper into etching, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. This short video provides an overview of the entire semiconductor manufacturing process, from raw silicon wafers to finished chips. It highlights key stages like photolithography, deposition, etching, and packaging. Pay attention to how each step builds on the last to create complex microstructures.
In this video, we help you understand the semiconductor industry, which is interconnected and constantly evolving in the enormous semiconductor ecosystem. Today, let's learn about the essential semiconductor manufacturing processes. In the first episode, we talked about silicon, the main material which is used to make semiconductors. In order for silicon to turn into a semiconductor chip, it needs to go through the essential processes of wafer manufacturing, oxidation, photolithography, etching, deposition and ion implementation, metal wiring, EDS, and packaging. Let's take a closer look at these processes. Semiconductors are stacked high and solid to form a complex structure, similar to a high-rise building. Constructing a building starts with the foundation. A wafer is the foundation for the semiconductor. Most wafers are made of silicon extracted from sand. How can these tiny grains of sand become a wafer? First, sand is heated until it melts into a high-purity liquid and then gets solidified by crystallization. The resultant silicon rod is called an ingot. These ingots are sliced into a disc, thinly sliced wafers. The surface of sliced wafers is rough and contains defects, so polishing machines are used to polish the surface of the wafer. The reason is that defects on the surface could negatively affect the precision of circuits. If you look at a photo of wafers, you can see a grid pattern on the surface. Yes, the word wafer comes from biscuit wafers. A wafer made this way is the main material for semiconductors. Because the larger the diameter is, the greater the number of chips that can be produced per wafer is. So, the diameter of wafers is becoming larger. Because the resultant thin disc-shaped wafer is not conductive yet, a process to make wafers semi-conductive is required. First, wafers go through the oxidation process. Oxygen or water vapor is sprayed on the wafer surface to form a uniform oxide film. This oxide film protects the wafer surface during the following processes and also blocks current leakage between circuits. The film acts as a strong protective shield. Now, the foundation is ready. The building up process begins. Just as you draw blueprints to build a building, you draw a circuit design onto a wafer, which is called the photolithography process. It is called photo for short because it is similar to developing a photo taken on a film camera. With semiconductors, a photomask functions as the film. A photomask is a glass substrate with a computer-designed circuit pattern. In order to draw the circuit on the wafer, the photoresist, a material that responds to light, is applied thinly and evenly on the oxide film previously placed on the wafer. Now, when light transfers the pattern photomask, the circuit is drawn on the wafer surface. Just like developing a photo, a circuit pattern is imprinted on the wafer by spraying developer and removing unlit areas from the areas that are exposed to light. After an inspection of the wafer to check whether the pattern is drawn well, it moves on to the next step. Now, unnecessary materials are carved out so that only the design pattern remains. Using a liquid or gas etchant, unnecessary materials are selectively removed to draw the desired design. When chemical solutions are used for etching, it is called wet etching. And when gas or plasma is used, it is called dry etching. We will talk about these details in the future. Let's imagine constructing a building on a semiconductor chip smaller than a fingernail and thinner than a sheet of paper. The photolithography process and the etching process are repeated several times on the wafer, layer by layer. Here, an insulating film that separates and protects the stacked circuits is required. It is called a thin film. Coating the thin film at a desired molecular or atomic level onto a wafer is called deposition. Since the coating is so thin, precise and sophisticated technology is required to uniformly apply the thin film on a wafer. To give the semiconductor electrical characteristics, ion implementation is also required. A semiconductor made of silicon does not conduct electricity, but adding impurities, it conducts current and has conductive properties. In summary, through the wafer manufacturing, oxidation, photolithography, etching, deposition, and ion implementation processes, the wafer becomes conductive and numerous circuits are drawn on it. Now, in order for this circuit to work, an electrical signal must be applied. It is necessary to create a path for electricity to pass through according to the circuit pattern. This process is called the metal wiring process. It is a process that allows electricity to flow by depositing a thin metal film using materials such as aluminum, titanium, or tungsten, so that electricity can pass through the semiconductor well. The chip manufacturing processes are now coming toward completion. The next step is EDS. This is the process of testing to ensure flawless semiconductor chips. In other words, it is a testing step to sort out defective chips. Yield is a percentage of prime chips relative to the maximum chip count on a single wafer. The semiconductor chips selected through the EDS process are made in a form suitable for devices. This is the last process, the packaging process. The wafer completed through the previous steps are cut into individual semiconductor chips that can be loaded on an electronic device. An individual chip must have a path to exchange electrical signals with the outside and have a form to protect it from various external elements. The wafer is cut into individual chips, and the diced or sawed chips are placed on the PCB board. In the bonding step, the contact point of the semiconductor chip placed on a substrate is connected with the contact point of the substrate. Then, molding finishes the chip package to its desired shape. After sealing the semiconductor and labeling the product name, the semiconductor chip we commonly see is completed. Of course, only after going through the final test will it become a finished product. Today, we learned about the essential processes that produce semiconductor chips. These complex processes can be separated into the pre-process, up to the wafer processing stage, and the post-process, which contains the testing and packaging processes. We hope you now have a better understanding of how a semiconductor chip is manufactured.
So now, let's proceed to the introduction of etching. Etching is a fundamental process in semiconductor manufacturing that involves selectively removing material from a substrate. It is used after photolithography to transfer the pattern defined in the photoresist into the material's layers beneath it. This removal process allows the creation of complex structures required for integrated circuits and micro devices. Etching can be chemical, physical, or a combination of both, depending on the technique used. The process needs to be highly controlled to achieve the desired feature size and depth. A well-executed etch ensures that device layers are properly isolated, shaped, and interconnected. Without etching, we couldn't build transistors, wires, or any of the complex architectures inside the chips. Let's take a quick journey through the evolution of etching and semiconductor manufacturing. It all began in the 1960s with wet etching, where acid-based solutions like hydrofluoric acid were used to dissolve materials such as silicon dioxide, I mean. This method was simple but lacked precision. In the 1970s and 80s, we saw a major leap with the introduction of dry etching, particularly plasma-based methods like reactive ion etching or RIE. This brought better directionality and control, key for the growing complexity of chips. Finally, from the 2000s to today, we entered the atomic era. Atomic layer etching or ALE and other precision methods now let us etch materials one atomic layer at a time. These are critical for advanced nodes like 3D NAND and sub-5 nanometer logic devices. Each breakthrough in etching has directly enabled the next generation of electronics. Etching defines the critical dimensions of a semiconductor devices. It is essential for miniaturization, enabling the creation of features that are just a few nanometers wide. As transistors sizes shrink with each new technology node, the accuracy of etching becomes even more crucial. Etching also ensures proper layer-to-layer alignment and allows the creation of deep features, such as trenches and vias. Without precise etching, electrical performance would degrade due to shorts, leakage, or misalignment. It also plays a significant role in device scaling, yield improvement, and reliability. Simply put, etching is one of the processes that make modern electronics possible. Etching can be classified by process type, directionality, and mechanism. Wet etching uses liquid chemicals, while dry etching uses plasma. Hybrid methods combine both. Directionally, isotropic etching removes material evenly in all directions, whereas anisotropic etching is more vertical and controlled, and mechanistically, chemical etching relies on reactions, while physical etching uses ion bombardment. Most modern techniques blend these approaches for better precision. Different materials require different chemicals for wet etching. For example, silicon dioxide is etched with hydrofluoric acid, while metals like aluminum might be etched using nitric acid mixed with acetic acid. The etching mechanism is usually a redox chemical reaction where the target material is oxidized and then dissolved. Reaction rates can be influenced by factors like temperature, agitation, and concentration. It's important to understand these mechanisms to maintain control over the etch depth and uniformity. Chemical compatibility is also critical, as some etchants may damage adjacent layers or mask materials. So let's walk through the steps in wet etching process. So first, we begin with substrate preparation, where the wafer surface is cleaned to remove any contaminants that could interfere with etching. So next one is masking, where a protective layer, usually photoresist or a hard mask, it is applied to define which areas should remain untouched. Then comes etchant selection. Uh, the appropriate chemical is chosen uh, based on the materials to be removed. The etching step follows where the wafer is exposed to the etchant, which reacts with the unmasked areas and removes the material. After that, rinsing and drying stop the reaction and clean off any leftover chemicals. Finally, we remove the masking layer to reveal the precisely etched pattern underneath. Wet etching is popular because it's simple and cost-effective. It doesn't need complex equipment, which keeps setup and maintenance costs low. It's also great for processing large areas, especially when ultra-fine detail isn't required. Wet etching works well on a common materials like silicon dioxide and metals, making it useful in many basic fabrication steps. Its simplicity makes it a go-to choice for early-stage prototyping or high-throughput tasks. In semiconductor manufacturing, dry etching is a crucial technique for pattern transfer onto the wafer. Unlike wet etching, which uses liquid chemicals to remove material, dry etching employs plasma or reactive gases. This method does not involve liquids, which makes it ideal for precise and controlled etching. One key difference between dry and wet etching is the etching pattern. Wet etching tends to be isotropic, meaning it etches uniformly in all directions. In contrast, dry etching is typically anisotropic, meaning it etches directionally, usually straight down. This directional etching is crucial for creating fine, accurate features on the wafer, which is essential for the high resolution demands of modern semiconductor devices. Dry etching is commonly used in processes like reactive ion etching, where plasma is generated in a vacuum chamber and used to break down material on the wafer surface. Now let's go over the essential steps involved in the dry etching process, which is crucial for creating precise features on semiconductor wafers. So first is it's also the same with the wet etching, substrate preparation. This process begins with cleaning the wafer surface to remove any particles, residues, or contaminants. These steps ensures a clean and smooth surface for accurate etching. Second is masking. A patterned photoresist or hard mask is applied to the wafer. This mask protects certain areas while leaving the other parts exposed to the etching process. The mask pattern determines the final features on the wafer. So third is chamber setup and gas introduction. The wafer is placed in a vacuum chamber and etching gases are introduced. These gases are specifically selected based on the material to be etched and the desired effect. Fourth is plasma generation. An electric field ionizes the gases inside the chamber, creating plasma. This plasma is made up of reactive ions and radicals that are essential for the etching process. Fifth is etching. The plasma's reactive ions and radicals then strike the unmasked areas of the wafer. This interaction removes material from the exposed regions through both chemical and physical means, creating the desired pattern. And sixth is byproduct removal. Once the etching is complete, byproducts and unused gases are pumped out of the chamber to maintain a clean and controlled environment. Last one is unloading and mask stripping. The wafer is removed from the chamber and the masking layer is stripped away, revealing the etched pattern on the wafer surface. So in dry etching, different gases are used depending on the material being etched, allowing for precise control over the etching process. Some common gases include carbon tetrafluoride, CF4. This gas is often used for etching silicon and silicon dioxide. It effectively removes materials from these substrates while maintaining the required precision. Second is sulfur hexafluoride, SF6. SF6 is commonly used for deep silicon etching, providing the necessary conditions for creating intricate, deep features on silicon wafers. Chlorine. Chlorine is typically used for etching metals like aluminum and copper. It reacts with these materials to remove them in a controlled manner. Lastly, oxygen. Oxygen is used to remove organic materials or photoresist. It helps in cleaning the wafer surface or stripping off any unwanted photoresist layers. So this variety of gases makes dry etching a versatile technique, suitable for etching a wide range of materials including silicon, dielectrics, and metals. The choice of gas is tailored to the specific etching requirements of the material in question. So what are the dry etching advantages? So dry etching uses gas and plasma to remove material from the wafer in a vacuum environment. The process involves ionizing gases to produce reactive ions and radicals that bombard the wafer surface. These energetic species can either physically knock atoms off or chemically react with them to form volatile byproduct. Dry etching provides much greater control than wet etching, especially in the vertical direction. This anisotropy allows for narrow trenches and high aspect ratio, features required in advanced devices, while more expensive and complex. Dry etching is essential for today's semiconductor nodes. So dry etching is a key process in semiconductor manufacturing, and there are several types, each with specific applications. These include RIE or reactive ion etching, deep reactive ion etching, and plasma etching. Each method uses different techniques to each materials precisely, making them crucial for creating intricate patterns on semiconductor wafers. So plasma is often called the fourth state of matter because it has distinct properties compared to solid, liquids, and gases. Plasma is created by applying an electromagnetic field to a gas which energizes its atoms and molecules, causing them to break apart and form a mix of ions or charged particles. electrons and neutral radicals, highly reactive atoms or molecules. So in dry etching, plasma plays a crucial role. It is one of the key methods used to etch materials in a controlled, precise manner. The reactive ions and radicals in plasma interact with the wafer material, allowing for a accurate etching without the need for liquids. So how does etching works in plasma? So in plasma and ion-based etching, gases like SF6, CF4, Cl2, or O2 are introduced into a plasma reactor, such as a parallel plate RIE system, where they are ionized by an electric field. The electric field accelerates positive ions towards the wafer surface. These ions bombard the wafer, physically knocking off atoms, a process called sputtering. At the same time, the ions react with the plasma's radicals, forming volatile byproducts that can be pumped away. This process is essential because the directionality of the ions results in anisotropic etching. This means the etching occurs in a specific direction, usually straight down, ensuring pattern fidelity and precise feature definition. Plasma-based etching is particularly valuable for creating deep, narrow structures with vertical sidewalls, features that are challenging to achieve with wet or isotropic etching methods. So, in reactive ion etching or RIE, reactive ion etching or RIE is a hybrid etching technique that combines two powerful mechanisms, which is physical etching and chemical etching. So physical etching, ion bombardment physically removes material from the wafer surface. So second is chemical etching. So reactive species in the plasma form volatile compounds with the material which are then pumped away. RIE is highly effective because it offers precise control over several critical aspects of the etching process, including etch rate, etch depth, uniformity across the wafer. Additionally, RIE allows for high selectivity, meaning etching can be stopped precisely at desired depths. This precision is especially crucial when working with multi-layer structures, where maintaining consistent depths and feature fidelity is a key. So in an RIE system, the wafer is placed on an electrode and a reactive gas like CF4 is introduced and ionized. The ions strike the wafer surface vertically, enhancing directionality and reducing undercutting. RIE is widely used in defining transistor gates, contracts, and bias. Its versatility and balance between speed and control make it a staple in most semiconductor fabs. Lastly, deep reactive ion etching or DRIE. It is a It is a specialized etching technique designed for creating features with high aspect ratios, often 20:1 or higher. This makes it an essential technique in fields like MEMS or microelectromechanical systems manufacturing, which requires deep, precise etching with vertical sidewalls. The Bosch process is a key method used in DRIE, named after Robert Bosch. It alternates between two steps. First is etch step. CF6 plasma etches silicon vertically, removing material at a high rate. Second is passivation step. C4F8 creates a polymer coating that protects the sidewalls from further etching. So this alternating process ensures that while the wafer etches deeply, the lateral surfaces are protected, allowing for straight down etching without widening the trench. So application of DRIE include MEMS devices like accelerometers, gyroscopes, and pressure sensors. Second is power devices, creating deep trenches for electrical isolation. Third is photonics, creating waveguides and micro-optical elements. So in etching, directionality plays a key role in how a material is removed from the wafer. There are two main types of etching based on directionality. So first is isotropic etching. This type removes material equally in all directions. While it's simpler, isotropic etching can lead to undercutting beneath mask, making it less precise for fine features. Second, it is anisotropic etching. In contrast, anisotropic etching removes materials in a preferred direction, typically vertically. These result in precise, well-defined side walls, making it ideal for creating high-resolution features. So the choice between isotropic and anisotropic etching depends on the specific requirements of the structure. Isotropic etching is easier but less accurate, while anisotropic etching is crucial for a high-precision, advanced microfabrication application. So let's compare the isotropic and anisotropic etching based on the key aspects. So in directionality, isotropic etching removes material in all directions. Oh, wait. And in anisotropic, it has a preferential directionality, typically vertically, allowing for more precise control over the etching process. So in etching technique, isotropic etching is generally achieved through wet etching, where chemicals dissolve materials from all sides. And anisotropic etching is usually done through dry etching, such as RIE or DRIE, which allow for more directional control. So in sidewall profile, isotropic etching results in rounded sidewalls, often leading to undercutting beneath masks. And anisotropic etching creates straight, vertical sidewalls, making it ideal for high-precision applications. In terms of precision, isotropic is less precise and generally used in more tolerant applications. And anisotropic provides high precision, which is crucial for advanced node technologies such as modern semiconductor manufacturing. So in use cases, isotropic is commonly used for bulk bulk etching in application like releasing layers in MEMS devices. And anisotropic etching is essential for creating like transistors, vias, and trenches in advanced semiconductor devices. So several key parameters define an etching process. The etch rate determines how fast material is removed, measured in nanometers per minute. Selectivity refers to how much more readily one material is etched compared to another. This is crucial when etching through layers with protective masks. So in uniformity, it ensures that the etching process removes material consistently across the entire wafer surface. So a uniform etch ensures consistent device performance and high yield. Balancing these parameters is critical for any successful etch recipe. So to perform etching selectively, masking layers like photoresist or hard masks are used. These protect the regions of the wafer that should remain intact. Selectivity is the ratio of etching the target layer versus the mask or underlying layers. A highly selective process ensures the mask isn't etched away prematurely. Choosing the right mask material is key. Uh, Hard masks like silicon nitride offer better durability for deep etches. Managing selectivity allows for deeper, more precise patterning without damaging other parts of the structure. So etching processes are carried out in cleanroom environments to prevent contamination. Even a single dust particle can destroy nanoscale features. So etching tools are enclosed in vacuum chambers, often with robotic wafer handling to ensure consistency and safety. Conditions like temperature, pressure, and gas flow are tightly controlled. So modern fabs use automation and real-time monitoring to maintain yield and process stability. Operating in a cleanroom environment is essential to ensure detect-free production at the nanometer scale. So now that we have an overview of the different types of etching, let's take a closer look at the etching process itself.
After creating layers and patterns, we move on to etching away specific areas. We distinguish two types of etching: wet etching, which utilizes liquid chemicals, and dry etching, by employing gas-based techniques. Dry etching is performed through reactive ion etching, RIE, in which the ions remove semiconductor material both by reacting to form volatile chemicals as well as scattering away material through the high velocity with which they impact on the wafer. In wet chemistry, the wafers are immersed in a liquid bath in which a chemical reaction dissolves unmasked parts of the wafer.
So let's explore some advanced etching techniques that offer specialized benefits for semiconductor manufacturing. So first is cryogenic etching. This technique operates at extremely low temperatures, which significantly enhances etch selectivity, the ability to etch certain materials while leaving others unaffected. So the reduced temperature also helps minimize damage to the wafer surface, which is critical when working with delicate materials or in high precision applications. So second one is pulse plasma etching. In this technique, the plasma is alternated between on and off states in pulses. So this allows for fine control over the ion energy during etching, improving the etch profile and reducing unwanted side effects like surface roughness or lateral etching. So it is particularly useful for creating high fidelity, sharp features. So third one is atomic layer etching or ALE. ALE takes precision to the next level by etching one atomic layer at a time. So this process is incredibly controlled, allowing for exceptional precision in material removal. And it is ideal for applications that demand ultra-fine feature sizes and where even small variation in etch depth can impact the overall performance of the device. So another advanced technique is inductively coupled plasma or ICP etching. ICP etching uses a high-density plasma source, allowing for deep and anisotropic etching profiles. So this technique provides enhanced control over etching depth and direction, which is crucial for creating intricate, high-precision features. So these advanced etching methods, including ICP, are essential for fabricating next-generation semiconductor devices with complex architectures. So as semiconductor devices become more intricate, this technique ensures that we can meet the demands for higher precision and more advanced features in microelectronics. So etching processes involve the use of hazardous chemicals, such as hydrofluoric acid, which can pose significant risk. So to ensure safety, it's essential to follow strict handling protocols to prevent accidents and exposures. So first one is personal protective equipment, PPE. It is a must for operators. They must wear appropriate gear, including gloves, goggles, and lab coats to protect themselves from chemical exposure. Second is waste management. This is also critical. So proper disposal and treatment of chemical waste help minimize environmental impact and ensure that harmful substances are handled safely. Effective ventilation systems is also necessary to prevent the buildup of toxic fumes, maintaining a safe working environment. So finally, regulatory compliance with environmental and safety standards. This is very essential. This ensures the well-being of workers and the surrounding community, maintaining a balance between industrial activity and safety. So etching plays a critical role in various stages of semiconductor manufacturing, with key applications including transistor fabrication. So etching is essential for creating precise features on transistors, enabling the miniaturization and performance improvements in modern microelectronics. Second is interconnect formation. So it defines the paths for electrical connections between components, ensuring efficient signal transmission and reliable device performance. So third is memory devices. So etching is used to carve out the tiny structures that make up memory cells, allowing for the storage and retrieval of data at high speeds. So fourth one is advanced packaging. So in advanced packaging, etching is crucial for creating fine patterns that connect and protect integrated circuits or IC within the package. So last one is yield enhancement. So by ensuring precise and uniform etching, the process helps increase the yield of functional semiconductor devices, improving overall production efficiency. So etching is essential for creating microstructures, cavities, beams, and membranes. It is also used in uh, accelerometers, gyroscopes, and pressure sensors. So these tiny precise features are very crucial to this application. And one of the most critical etching techniques for these applications is deep reactive ion etching, which is DRIE, which is particularly valuable for 3D micromachining. So DRIE enables the creation of deep vertical structures that are vital for MEMS devices, allowing for complex three-dimensional features in microelectronics. So the future of etching lies in achieving even greater precision, selectivity, and environmental compatibility. So researchers are working on plasma-free dry etching methods that minimize damage to sensitive materials. New chemistries are being developed for selective atomic layer etching. As devices move toward 3D integration and stacking, etching must handle more layers with tighter control. AI and machine learning are also being used to optimize etch recipes in real time. Environmental regulations are also shaping how chemicals are used, leading to greener alternatives and better recycling processes. Etching will continue to be a central pillar of semiconductor advancement. So, in summary, wet etching and dry etching each have their own strengths. Wet etching is faster and more affordable, while dry etching gives you better precision and control. So there's no one best option. It all depends on your project's needs, materials, and how detailed your design is. So thank you for your attention. I hope this presentation has provided valuable insights into the etching process in semiconductor manufacturing. So that's all. Bye-bye.